And so the man who uttered those words on the steps of City Hall 20 years ago, no goal, former Sabre coach Lindy Ruff here with us to look back. Lindy, thanks so much for taking the time to come in.
You're welcome, Adam.
Let's just ask off the top, just for most of us who covered it or were somehow connected to it, it seems like yesterday, those moments are seared into so many memories. What are your thoughts and reflections as you look back 20 years?
Well, my thoughts are really the same, that I think at the moment you're thinking you're going to have a lot of opportunity to win the Stanley Cup, or there's going to be another one the next year or the years after, and now looking back on it, it was one big chance. It's still vivid. It's still, I can still trace back, what happened, where I went, what I saw, how I reacted. And looking back at it, it was a crazy year with all this foot in the crease stuff. And that foot in the crease was, an opportunity to change a game.
So take me back to that moment. You're on the bench. The play develops. What you saw, how you interpreted it, and at what point did you think foot in the crease? Initially didn't really know if it was foot in the crease. Found out, probably within 15 to 30 seconds after that, they had flooded the ice, and somebody had said, listen, we think there's a foot in the crease, and then was able to get a look at it. Back in the room, and then came out and just, said it should be, there's a foot in crease. This play has to be reviewed. And from a sense of where that all went wrong, or how it was coordinated from a video review, I don't know. We have video, I think, of coming back out onto the bench of that moment. Were you not screaming at Gary Bettman?
Yeah, that's something I'd really like to. Some of my raw emotion, came out, and I didn't handle that situation particularly well. But I think it was all the emotion of that whole series, the whole playoff, that opportunity to win a championship here in Buffalo. That you're caught up in the moment, and it was the wrong place. Probably it was a tough situation to be standing there yelling what I was yelling at that time.
Well, it's the worst case scenario, because at that point you're trying to get the game continued, right? Do you have any hope at all at that point? Are you just reacting? Are you thinking we need to keep playing this game, review it, and get the guys back out on the ice? What's going through your mind at that moment?
Going through my mind is exactly what you said. If this game's going to go on, they have to review this, and they have to take a look at it, and they have to give, that review process usually took, a good period of time, and then they would, during that process, they'd say, we've got a good goal, or don't have a good goal, and this game is, this game's going to continue. So in my mind, I thought, maybe I have a shot here at getting this game restarted, but that wasn't the case.
Okay, so in the moments that follow, we all learn about the continuation memo and how they had altered the rule about you could possess the puck and go into the crease. You told me a couple of days after that you had received that memo as you guys were cleaning out lockers and that sort of thing. When you and I had a conversation, I distinctly remember it. So what explanation did you receive at the time in the moments and minutes and maybe hours that followed Game 6? And what was your interpretation of how the rule was applied?
Well, there's just that gray area about possession. It's about, the foot being in the crease before. Was it in there? Was he in there with possession? I think a lot of us believe there wasn't. I don't think there was any real clarification immediately on, how that was interpreted and how that play was actually reviewed, and if it really was reviewed. Or, we were prepared as a team. If we were winning a series and that goal went in, we were going to flood the ice and this game's going to be over. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, the gates open, there's hundreds of people on the ice, they're celebrating a championship, and that's hard to turn back. It's hard to even review a situation like that, I think.
How much do you replay that in your mind?
As you move forward until you called me a couple days ago, I kind of let it go, but you brought it up again, and I think like I said, you look back on how that happened, how it unfolded, and there's always those situations in sports, and we were involved in a big situation that turned a game. And you can look at football playoffs this year, you can look at the hockey playoffs this year, how some teams won and lost, and it's no different the way it went down for us. So in sports, some crazy things happened, and that was probably one of the craziest for us.
Okay, so a little bit of devil's advocate here. People would look at that situation in hindsight and say, the rule was flawed. They tried to change the rule as the season went on. In the purest sense, fundamentally, Dom wasn't interfered with. There really was nothing wrong with the way that goal was scored. Today, it obviously would count. Does that change your perspective looking back on it? Or because of the way the rule was applied, or perhaps not applied in this case, does it still bother you?
I think that, you try to use the rules to the utmost in your favor. In our favor, that case would have been us declaring that his foot was in the crease and there should be no goal. Because it's really the parameters that it had been run the whole year. And now you have this gray area of, did he have possession? Was he in the crease with possession? We can debate that for the next 20 years if we want. But at the time, I felt that, based on all the calls I'd seen, was a goal that shouldn't have been allowed.
What are your reflections on that team?
I just think that the run we had, the team we had, the amount of fun that group of guys had with each other in this whole playoff run, and I think that's even, let's just reference this year's playoffs and St. Louis winning the championship, that group from January on, how well they did and how well they made out and how they gelled together as a team. It was, you look for something as a coach as playoffs go on, you wrap yourselves around that, and our big nugget was Dom in the net, and we believed that this guy could help us win a championship, and maybe we weren't the best at this area, that area, but we knew we were the best in this area. And as the playoffs went on, we had some players that got better, that played better, that really stepped up in different situations, and believed that we could win a championship. And I think, going into Dallas and winning game one was, oh man, we really have a shot at this.
And then you play it out. If James Patrick doesn't hit the post or crossbar in the second overtime, if the whole scenario goes differently, whatever, if it gets to game 7, you have one game and Dominik Hasek in net.
Yeah, and I like our chances if we get to a game 7 with Dom. And they had a lot of players that, at the time were hurting, that were, physically going to be hindered in the way they were going to be able to play. So, with us having Dom in a one-game scenario, I just think that, we'd already won in Dallas. We felt we were a team that could win on the road, play well on the road in the playoffs. You mentioned James Patrick. Almost every time I see him, I say, why not shoot a couple inches lower? And I think he hears that ringing sound in his head. Everyone
in the building heard it. As high as you upper 300 level, whatever.
Because there wasn't a lot of great chances in those overtimes. I mean, it was a hard fought, closely battled. It was hard to get a grade A chance, and so when we heard that, it was, it hits the bar. It's either going in or it's staying out, and it stayed out.
So the years go on, and you've had the opportunity to interact with Ken Hitchcock. I can think of one night in a Philadelphia series in particular. His words can't be repeated here.
No, they can't.
But you've worked with him as well.
Yes.
Right, in terms of Team Canada and those sorts. How much interaction and discussion have you had with Hitch through the years, looking back on No Goal?
We've talked a lot about the different playoff series, including that one, and that's, where he really talked about, how his team had really given it all they had, and the number of players, and it's typical for a playoff series after it's over to hear about so-and-so playing with this and so-and-so playing with that, and, how, it was a physical series, and it just seemed that we were able to, kind of come out ahead in that physical category. They played hard and played physical, but they had a lot of players that were hurt, and he felt that I think if they went to a game 7, we were going to have the advantage with the number of players they had that were hurting.
So in preparing for this and kind of looking back and replaying the video myself, looking at it again and reading some articles that have been written, this one came up in a poll, ranked the most controversial goals in NHL history. Guess where this one ranked? Number one.
Yeah. Well,
to have been a part or associated in a game like that all these years later. You ever reflect on that?
Yeah, I just reflect on that opportunity, that big opportunity to have a championship right here in Buffalo. I think that's the thing that I reflect on most. It would have been a one-game opportunity. It doesn't mean we would have won it. It was a one-game opportunity to give us another shot at bringing the cup here.
A long-awaited major sports championship for this city. I don't think anyone understands that, what it would mean here more than you.
Yeah, I think I do. Being a Bills fan and being able to play and coach here for the amount of years I did, I would hate to see what would happen in the city with a championship. I'd like to see it.
So there you are on the steps of City Hall, however many days it was later, and I remember it again like it was yesterday. Describe to me your emotions as you talked to the fans and uttered those words.
Well, I don't know how why I said it at that moment. It wasn't anything that was pre-rehearsed. It was just raw emotion. I think our fans were having just as much fun as our team was having through that whole playoff run. And, I think when I stepped outside, saw all those people, that just came out. I don't know why, but it did. And, looking back on it, it was just all part of that emotion. And I think when I saw those people, I wanted to see those people celebrating a Stanley Cup. I didn't want to see them celebrating, man, you guys had a good run. I guess what I gave them was something that was going to it made me happy, I guess, at the time. Probably made them a little bit happy, too.
What do you think when you hear people utter those words now, today still?
It's become such a, people have had me hand me stuff that'll say no goal on it from, okay, can you sign this, and like I said, it's controversy. And there's other games and other series and other sports that have the same controversy. We had ours.
Just kind of a couple of things I wanted to ask you kind of moving forward here, but also looking back. So there's obviously 99. When you were as close as you could possibly get, really short of going to a Game 7. Then I think of the Drury-Briere era, and particularly that Carolina series where the injuries just mounted in McKee going into Game 7 that night. What do you feel was your best shot at a Stanley Cup, looking back on your years as coach of the Sabres?
I think the 99, the Drury-Briere, the Carolina series, we were rolling pretty good in that series too. And I got to give our guys a lot of credit because guys just kept stepping in. We really put a lot of onus on a couple of defensemen when we lost some defensemen. But I really felt if we got through that, we were still going to be able to put up a pretty good fight. So in different respects, I think you look at both of those opportunities as really good opportunities. One, we didn't quite get it done. The other one, I think injuries just took a major toll on us, and it hurt us. And we had that game kind of right there until we, I'm not saying they wouldn't have scored, but we flipped one out of the rink that,
sure, on bad ice.
On bad ice, it cost us or gave them an opportunity to get in the game.
So moving forward, you're going back to New York?
Going back to New York, yes.
Is this, someone told me, how many years for you in the NHL is this now?
I came to Buffalo in '79, so you can do the math, Adam.
That's incredible.
Yes. Still
Still have the same fire?
Still got the same fire. I want to win a cup. I've decided that that fire hasn't gone out yet.
Any aspirations to be a head coach again?
Yes, yes, there is. So I'm going to keep, trying to chase that and looking for a job, after this season.
Any interest, and I know I'm not making a direct, but I know it's come up, and inevitably with the amount of change there's been in the Sabres organization, would you be open to a return here?
You know what? I had good conversations with Jason. You know, leading up to the hiring of Ralph, and I know Ralph, and Ralph's a real good man. I've worked with Ralph in the Olympics in 14, and we're talking about a real good quality person. And you know, it didn't work out with coming back, but you know, I'd entertain at some point, yes.
Unfinished business.
I think there's a lot of coaches that have a lot of unfinished business, and I have something I got to get past.
All right. Lindy Ruff, thanks very much for taking the time
Thanks,
on this
Adam.
20th anniversary of No Goal. Former Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff, I'm Adam Benigni. Thanks for joining us online.